Hello everyone, welcome back to LPRs Delivery. Today we'll be talking about a skill called paraphrasing. If we look at your descriptors to get your operational level 4 in the area of vocabulary, we see this little part here. Can often paraphrase successfully when lacking vocabulary in unusual or unexpected circumstances. Now, what they mean by paraphrase is something like this. Let's look at a Thai example. If I go to the market and I want to buy some flowers, and then I want to buy something else, but I don't know how to say this in Thai. So maybe I would say, ขอโทษนะครับ มีแบบขวดที่ใส่ดอกไม้หรือเปล่าครับ? So notice I don't know this word, so I use words to go around it and explain it. This skill is called circumlocution, which is similar to paraphrasing. So if you have to describe a photo, and maybe you don't know what this is, how can you describe it? Well, one tip for this is to start with a general object and then add a description. For example, maybe you don't know this word in English. So, the general object is a machine, and then we should describe it a little bit more specifically. A machine that makes smoothies, or a machine for making fruit shakes, or a noisy machine that makes juice. All of these describe exactly what this is, a blender. So back to our example for the photo description. We could say on the right side of a picture there is what? What is this? It's a building. But let's describe the building. There is a building with red and white squares that are painted for safety. Notice we start with the object and then we describe it. Notice we have another paraphrase or circumlocution here. We don't know what to call these markings, so we can say red and white squares that are painted for safety. Same idea. Let's look at another example. What would you call this in English? Well, it's a lever. And what's the purpose? It's a lever that raises and lowers the chair. Or, I just pull the lever that makes the chair go up or down. So again, we notice object, description. Now, another skill that's more accurately what paraphrasing really is in the comprehension and interaction sections of your speaking exam. Let's look at these more closely. In the comprehension section, we see comprehension may be slower or require clarification strategies, or deals adequately with apparent misunderstandings by checking, confirming, or clarifying. What this means is that if you're in the exam and the examiner asks you a question, for example, how would you expect your job to be different if a regional approach to air traffic management were to be implemented? Maybe you start to feel a little bit confused if you don't understand the question. So sometimes you need to ask for repetition. How can you do that? Well, most people like to say, again? I would not recommend saying this word because it's very, very simple and it's not very natural in native English. However, how about this? I'm sorry, could you repeat that? Or, I'm sorry, could you please repeat that? Notice we can also say, could you say that again? The reason why these are better is because there's more words and it's more natural English. Remember that in this exam, they are grading you and marking you on your English and all skills. So try to memorize these phrases to use. However, asking for repetition is not always the best strategy, because sometimes you may have heard it and listening again might not help you. A true clarification strategy would be like these: checking, confirming, and clarifying. This is where paraphrasing comes in. So if we have this question again, how would you expect your job to be different if a regional approach to air traffic management were to be implemented? You could start with the phrase, "So you mean something." Let's say you don't really understand this part. So you mean if northern Thailand and Laos were in the same FIR, for example? Or so you mean if this happens in the future, right? Or maybe if you don't understand this part, how would you expect your job to be different? Maybe you could say, in other words. In other words, would my job be more difficult? Or, in other words, how would procedures change? One thing to notice here is that these are all questions because we're checking, we're confirming, and clarifying. So notice that our sound should be going up. In other words, how would procedures change? Change? Another way to do this is like this. Think about this question. At Aerothai, all employees are expected to be punctual. How do you make sure to do this? Now, maybe you don't know the word punctual. Or maybe you do, so you want to check or confirm. So you mean, how do I make sure to come to work on time? Or if you just don't know at all, I'm sorry, what does punctual mean? Remember that it's better to ask questions when you're not sure than to guess and give the wrong answer. Because after all, language is about communication. Better to ask questions. So that's it for today's lesson on circumlocution and paraphrasing. It's very easy to practice your circumlocution. Just look around your desk and grab something. For example, this. This is a piece of metal that's used to open doors. Or this is scissors that we use to cut our fingernails. Or this is string that I use to clean my teeth. So practice with any object and you'll build up your skills and it will help your fluency when it comes time to take the test. So thank you for your time and see you next time for LPR's delivery. ขอบคุณครับ สวัสดีครับ